Hey guys, welcome back to Ashar Books. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite books of 2023 so far. So I thought this would be kind of fun to do. I've done this in the past every quarter where I've talked about my favorite books. I kind of didn't get to it in the first quarter, so what I'm going to do is just 3 times throughout the year. So this will be for the first 4 months. So my favorites from January, February, March, and April. I'll do it again in August, and then again obviously at the end of the year I'll talk. And I thought this is just a nice place to kind of be able to take all my favorite books from the first couple months of the year and chat about them, and also help myself by really narrowing down my favorites, so when it comes to the end of the year it's a little bit easier. It was interesting too making this list because it was pretty easy to make and it's actually not that long. And this isn't every 5-star read. So there was a few other books that were 5 stars for me, but when I thought back on them, either they were kind of forgetful after the fact, or they just didn't kind of stick with me like emotionally, or I just don't think about them that much. So I'm not going to take away their 5-star because after reading them, I really love them enough to give them that. But they maybe just aren't absolute favorites. So without further ado, these are the ones that I really just, I loved this year so far. The first one is Resting Witch Face by Juliet Cross. This is a Jules and Ruben story. It's book 5 in the Stay a Spell series, which is a paranormal romance series. And I read this one, I think in January, like really early on in the year. And I love this. I feel like honestly, we're gonna have 2 Juliet Cross books probably on my favorites of the year because I just read Grim and Barrett in May, so it's not on this list, but spoiler alert, it was my fave. So I love this book. I feel like we'd been waiting to get Jules and Ruben's story for a really long time, and it delivered. And I love the series with my whole heart. I feel like I keep talking about the series and I keep recommending it, and that's for a good reason. It's just so good. And this series in general is such a comforting series. It's really, I don't know, like it does have problems, don't get me wrong. Like every book has somewhat of a stressful situation in it, but I just love the Savoy sisters so much, and I love seeing each one find their love, and it's just, I love it so much. So this one had to go on the list. Next one is A Matter of Temptation by Stacey Reid. This one was fantastic. It's historical romance. It's Stacey Reid. I feel like she cannot do wrong. This one was one that came out last year. Was it last year? I think it was last year. And this is one I absolutely adored. I really need to get a physical copy of this because I loved it so much. And it was fantastic. Next was Curious Beginning, and really the first 3 books in the Veronica Speedwell series by Deanna Raybourn. I really fell hard for this series. I do need to continue it. I've only read the first 3 so far, but I was kind of trying to savor them so I didn't rush through them super fast. But this, it's a series. It's not technically a historical romance series. I'd say it's more of a historical mystery series, but a really big subplot of the series is the romance between Veronica and her partner Stoker. So, this one just has so much fun. There's banter, there's scientific-y talk. Yes, that's an actual word. But I really loved it. And really what kept me coming back though was Veronica and Stoker. So definitely want to continue this. And this again is a really kind of comforting series. I see why people say that about it. It kind of has one of those plots where every book is a mystery. So it's wrapped up at the end. You feel like some kind of a conclusion, but then there's like an overarching plot as well, especially with the romance that, you have to read from book to book to get the whole situation. But I really want to continue that. And these were definitely favorites for the first few months of the year. Next is a series, and I'm putting the whole series on because I feel like the first book may not have been favorite, but the whole series was, and that's The War of Lost Hearts by Carissa Broadbent. I'd say the second and third book were 5 stars, and the whole series overall is 5 stars, even though I gave the first one 4 stars. This is such a good fantasy romance series, and I know so many people are talking about Carissa's books right now, and it's a little daunting, and I haven't read her other series yet. Hopefully soon. But I will say, in my opinion, that this series at least was worth the hype. I loved it so much. I loved Max. and Tasana, and it just really stuck with me. I feel like it had such a good balance between the plot and the fantasy elements, the romance and the emotional kind of ties that run throughout it. I mean, I was sobbing by the end of the third book, and if a book makes me sob that hard, it probably deserves a spot on my favorites list, and this one certainly did. Next is one that I do own a physical copy of, but I lent it out to a friend, so I don't have it, but that's The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I was very pleasantly surprised, I guess. I don't know why I was surprised. I think, again, there was such hype about this book, and I do know it's a little polarizing for people. They either really like it or really don't, which is cool. You can not like a book, that's okay. But I really loved it, and it really stuck with me. Like, it was one that I looked back at its 5-star rating, and I'm like, yeah, totally deserves it. Loved Lena and Aaron, I think it is, right? His name's Aaron. I'm really bad with names, but you know I love to book when I can remember the names. So this is just such a good, I really thought this was a good contemporary romance. And again, it had a really good mix between like the hate to love and then all of the parts where you get to see her family and her background in Spain. And I really loved it. It really touched me. This is one of the books that was hyped the most that really did, again, live up to the hype for me. The next one was The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, kind of similar to The Spanish Love Deception. I had put this one off for a while because there was so much talk about it, and it wasn't all good, but I love this book. I thought it was such a fun ride. I also am a massive Disney fan, which I think helps somewhat because obviously the three brothers in this Dreamland Billionaire series, if you don't know, are the heirs of Dreamland, which is pretty much like Disney World, or, you know, the Disney World heirs, right? So you get a lot of talk, especially in the first book, because the heroine and the hero both are at Dreamland, they work there. So there was a lot of really fun Easter eggs, but I also just loved Zara and Rowan, and I just thought it was so well done. I just ate it up. I finished it so fast, and I do not regret it one bit. I finished book 2 recently, so we'll have to wait and see if that's in my favorites for the next 4 months. But this one I think deserves it, and I just had such a good time. Like, I can't say anything else about it. And the last one I'm gonna mention is When the Earl Met His Match by Stacey Reid. So I did put 2 books by Stacey Reid on this list, and that's because I couldn't pick. I tried to originally pick between the 2, and I could not. So she gets 2. You know it's a favorite author when she gets 2 spots on a very short list. But I loved this one so much. This is one of her backlist titles, and that makes me so excited because sometimes I think when you go back and read an author's earlier works, sometimes you can be a little disappointed because they weren't, you know, it takes time for them to become the author they are now. And it makes me excited to love one this much from her backlist, because that means as I keep reading her backlist, hopefully I find other books that are favorites. Because I will be honest, if I had to pick one, like I had to, I think I'd pick this one over A Matter of Temptation, even though it was like an earlier book, but I'm not picking, but if I had to, it would be this one because it was so fantastic. I loved every aspect of it. The hero in this one won me over 100%. I loved the heroine. I thought it was so well done. And if you are looking for a historical romance, I really cannot suggest Stacey Reid more. Also, a lot of her books are now in Kindle Unlimited, so you have no excuse if you have that subscription. You need to go check her out. All right, so those are actually where I'm gonna stop because I think I'm pretty happy with those being my favorites from the first January, February, and March, so the first third of the year. Like I said, I did have others that were like honorable mentions that, you know, maybe I'll make it on to the list as like honorable mentions at the end of the year, but I think those were my top favorites so far. I also like that it's a pretty good mix. Got some fantasy romance on there. I've got some historical romance, and I had some contemporaries, which is pretty much me, like in a nutshell. That's how I like to do my reading, and that's kind of how I tend to go like bopping between things. But yeah, so let me know if any of these are your favorites of the year, or if you didn't like them, you can let me know that too. Just say it nicely. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.